Welcome to the Rock Interview Series with host Thomas S. Orwatt Jr.
Welcome to episode 108 of the Rock Interview Series. I'm Thomas Orwatt Jr., and today is October 17th, 2024, and I have the iconic rock drummer Simon Wright as my guest. Simon was in the band ACDC from 1983 to 1989, then went on to join Dio and later UFO. Currently, Simon keeps the rhythm pounding with the Ronnie James Dio-sanctioned tribute band, Dio Disciples. During this interview, Simon shares insight on Dio Disciples, talking about the band's recent performances and future plans. In addition, Simon reminisces about his time with ACDC, Dio, and UFO. So let's get started. Here is Simon Wright. Hey everyone, welcome to the Rock Interview Series, and we have a great special today. We have somebody that I've been wanting to interview for many years, one of my favorite drummers of all time. We have Simon Wright, who also played in three of my favorite bands, ACDC, Dio, and UFO. Simon, thank you very much for taking the time to talk. I recently played some shows with Dio's Disciples, and I watched some video footage, and you guys are just on fire with Joey Belladonna on lead vocals. Tell us a little bit about some of those shows, and do you guys have plans on touring the United States in 2025 at all?
We do plan on some shows in 25. Those shows kind of came up really quickly with not much preparation beforehand. They were supposed to be done by Don Dokken, but he couldn't do it because he got sick. So the guitar player was going to be doing Don Dokken was Ira Black, who is a good friend of mine. And he called us up and said, what about doing, what about Dio Disciples? And we said, okay, we'll try and get that together. So Ira knew Joey Belladonna and got a hold of him, and he already does kind of a tribute thing to Ronnie. So he knew a lot of the material, which was really good. We did one rehearsal in Germany, and then we started the run of shows there, and it worked out really well. We're not sure if that's it's gonna be that lineup next year. We may even start earlier in December, but for now it's next year. So because he's got commitments, and so does Ira. So we're not sure on the lineup yet, but we got a little time to figure it out, and we've got some pretty good ideas, and for a solid lineup of Dio Disciples for quite a while. So we'll see if that pans out, but nothing to report at the moment.
Okay. There was also rumors a few years back that Dio's Disciples, you guys were working on a record. Is that that's something that you still plan on doing?
Well, we did have some songs that were kind of half finished. So they're still there. I mean, at the moment, we're just concentrating on getting the band back on the stage and in front of people. But yeah, that could happen. That could happen in the future.
This music that you were writing for it, did this include any like old music that Ronnie James Dio was working on?
I think there was kind of half a song that Craig and Ronnie had been working on before Ronnie unfortunately left us. And we did look at that song, and Wendy was kind of keeping an eye on what was going on with that as well, obviously. But it really didn't come to anything really. We need to work on it more, and we just we got preoccupied with shows, I guess, and touring and stuff. Because I mean, when we all got blasted with the COVID thing, in 2019, we just finished a tour with the hologram, and we had big plans for that. We were going to take it, overseas, and those plans kind of got halted and put to one side. So, a lot of things got halted, and that was one of them, was the songwriting thing as well. Yeah. So we'll see in the future.
Yeah. Now, interestingly, the hologram that was a big focus of Wendy Dio's to get that, and it went on a tour, and there was kind of mixed reactions to it.
Yeah.
What was it like for you playing in those shows with the hologram shows?
Well, I was using. I had to play along to a click track, and just for myself, I don't use in ears. I don't like things inside my ears for some reason. And I would use headphones, so I had the headphones on, bit like what you got on right now, and play along to a click track. We had to do it that way because we were kind of following Ronnie's voice a lot of the time. And but it was enjoyable. It was really cool. I had a great mix inside of there. I couldn't really see um, the holograms, so to speak. It was, now and again I could, but I had a lot to concentrate on, so I wasn't really watching it anyway. I had a lot of count-ins to certain songs and parts, and so I had to really concentrate on what I was doing. But it was enjoyable. It really was. It sounded great inside of those headphones.
Yeah. Now the new shows that you guys are doing, are you incorporating like old footage of Ronnie James Dio in the show?
Yeah, it won't be the hologram, I don't think. But we do plan on, if we can. It all depends on how things pan out. But we'd like to put some footage together on the big screens. And that would be very cool because I think Wendy has a whole bunch of footage of performances by Ronnie that I'm not sure if people have seen them already. I think there's some they haven't. So and there'll be stories and snippets of Ronnie talking and moments from his great career, and hopefully we can do that. But we'll just have to see how it all pans out. Whether the budget can take that or what's happening with it.
Yeah, I mean that sounds great. I really think that there's like huge potential for a tour like that. I mean, a lot of people, really miss Ronnie, and really, and I give you guys a lot of credit for keeping the legacy alive, and you guys do it so brilliantly that it's this deserves to be very successful, and I think it would be for sure if you guys go out on a major tour with the footage and everything. I think that would be a great production.
Well, it means a lot to us. I mean, we still talk a lot about Ronnie when we get together, and good memories and stuff, and we care about what we're how things are and how they look. It's got to be a cool show, because we know how hardcore his fans are, and that's the most important thing.
Simon, one of the most fascinating aspects of your career is the fact that you're in one of the biggest bands in the world, ACDC. And when you joined the band, you were only 19 years old. Can you just tell us a little bit how you became a member of ACDC, and what that audition was like to join the band?
Sure, it was. I was living in London at the time, and a friend of mine saw an ad in a music paper. I've told this story many times, but there was an ad in the music paper, and I answered it, and it said, drummer wanted. If you don't hit hard, don't apply. It didn't say who the band was. And so I was kind of in the middle of things. I was in a London band called Titan, and we weren't doing very much. And I answered, and I went down, and I met it was the drum tech, Dickie Jones, in the lobby of this quite a big rehearsal studio in London. And he showed me into a room, and it was a drum kit and a PA. And he asked me to play the 3 songs, which were Led Zeppelin, Black Dog, ZZ Top, Tush, and Shoot to Thrill by ACDC. So I kind of knew him a little bit. So I played, and I put my sticks down, and he said, that was great, really good. We'll be in touch. And I went, yeah, right, okay. So I left, I went home. And about 3 hours later, the phone rang, and it was him again. He said, can you come back tomorrow? And I said, no, I really can't because I haven't got any money. And he said, well, don't worry about that. Just get yourself in a taxi and get down there. So I thought, oh, that's good. Paying for a taxi, it's a good start. I still didn't know who the band was. So I arrive again and he meets me again. And this time he takes me down a different corridor and there's all these flight cases with ACDC on them. So I sort of tapped him on the shoulder and I said, you're fucking kidding, right? And he kind of looked at me and went, nope. So, I don't know what set in, trepidation, fear, or what, but I just got on with it. And the door opened and Angus was there and Mal and Cliff. And they were really accommodating. They were really, really friendly and nice and no big rock star egos or anything, and they were, hey, what do you want to play? So I was, we can do Back in Black or whatever you want to do. So we just got down to it and we did 4 or 5 and then we sort of finished up and they wandered over to this couch and sat down and started chatting. And I just kind of sat there and I thought, well, I better follow them. So I sat down and they started talking about touring and scheduling and stuff like this. And I'm thinking to myself, should I leave now or what? Should I be here? So I asked Malcolm, I said, does this mean I'm in the band? And he said, yeah, it looks like it, doesn't it? So I couldn't wait. I've said it before. I couldn't wait to get out of there and like call my father and, friends and whatever, But then my whole life changed after that.
And that is an absolutely incredible story. Your life must have changed. Your first gig that you played with them, I believe, was on October 11th, 1983 in Vancouver. What was that first show like for you?
Well, like I say, when I met them, they were so friendly and down to earth that they just made it really relaxing, like backstage, and it was all really low key. The only thing we got to the show and my drum tech said to me, he said, Simon, it's going to get really loud, but don't worry, just get going, start up, and you'll be fine. And it got really loud. It was just unbelievably. I've never heard anything like it. But like I say, it was just such a low key thing. Just get up there and rock. It wasn't that difficult. I must admit. I think the second gig was harder, and I can't remember where the hell that was. But for some reason, I don't know. It was weird, but you just get down to it. You start playing and you're good to go.
Yeah, I think one of the reasons they picked you is because you're such a powerful drummer. You replaced a great drummer in Phil Rudd. Did they have any influence on? Did they, did you have to change your style at all? So like try to emulate him a bit more. Or did you just basically play the songs the way you wanted to?
No, I out of total respect, there isn't much you can veer off with their songs. That's one of the essences. That's one of the great things of DC is that solid rhythm. You know what I'm talking about, right? So, it's just common sense. You can't really veer away from the way the drums are on those DC songs, and. I've always been kind of I hit the drums pretty hard. I don't know why, I just do. Probably why I'm not in a jazz band. So, you just kind of keep it straightforward like the songs are, and they were really happy about things,
What was it a good working relationship? Were you kind of mentioned that they're kind of easy to get along with. Was that true on tour also?
Yeah. I mean, it's pretty straightforward. The music is what it is, and it was a good laugh. There was, beers and all. Brian's a good drinker. So, so is Cliff. It was good. It was all low key. It was almost like the music came second, because it was just so, okay, now it's time to work, and the rest of the time it's just relaxed and having a good laugh. Brian tells lots of jokes, knows a lot of jokes, and it was a good time.
What were
Yeah.
some of the challenges for you going, from that point to like being the biggest band in the world, playing in front of like 16,000 people in these arenas every night?
Well, I think one of the main things was that I hadn't really been on tour before. I was in a band that toured with Girls' School around England. They were called A to Z, and that lasted about 3 weeks. So when I joined DC, the amount of time being away from home, was something I had to adjust to. I was used to just, being at home a lot and trying to find gigs. But, we'd go on tour for 3-4 months at a time, and you're in a hotel room. So that was one of the main things, just getting used to, being away from home and your family and stuff. But I dealt with it.
You were in ACDC from May of 1983 to November of 1989. There was really no breaks. I mean, between touring and recording records, I mean, you guys were like nonstop. Did you find that to be challenging?
Once I got over the initial hurdle of being away so much from home, it was okay. Yeah, you kind of get used to it, and it's working with them and hearing these new songs. First album I did was Fly on the Wall, so that was a great experience. Being around them, writing new material for a new album. I mean, I was basically just a fan who got the gig, and that was pretty incredible seeing how they work.
Yeah, Fly on the Wall came out in July of 1985, and it was produced by Angus and Malcolm Young. It wasn't really well received at the time. I mean, when I listened to it, I think in retrospect, I think it's an amazing record. Did that backlash like affect the band at all? And
No, not really. I mean, words here. I mean, I really didn't have anything to do with that. I mean, so I didn't really see any of that. I was just there to play drums, and I was never involved in any of the business of it. I do recall they were kind of going through a transition. What was the album before that? Flick of the Switch?
yeah, Flick of the Switch. Yep.
Yeah. So they started changing out some of the management and some other people. And yeah, just I did notice that, but we when we started touring that album, I mean, we put in a couple of songs from Fly on the Wall, and they seemed to go down great, you know, um, and we just carried on like that.
Yeah. I was fortunate enough to see every tour that you played with ACDC on. And I thought Fly on the Wall was one of the best tours I've ever seen in my life. The opening act for Fly on the Wall, for at least the show I saw, was Yngwie Malmsteen. And
Yeah,
I remember reading at the time in one of the music magazines that Angus Young kind of like, it almost seemed like he regretted picking Yngwie because he was quoted as saying, "How do I follow this now?" So was that an issue? Having Yngwie Malmsteen as an
no,
opening
no,
act.
not at all. No, Angus is Angus and Yngwie is Yngwie, and never the twain shall meet. They play totally different styles. I mean, you know, it's it's no, that never came up.
Oh.
He wasn't worried about anything. Angus was never worried about anything.
Okay, so then the next record that came out was the soundtrack for Maximum Overdrive, the Who Made Who record, which was a greatest hits, but there was a new single on there, Who Made Who, and
Yeah,
that song kind of, in my opinion, was the song that, kind of rejuvenated AC/DC as far as their popularity goes, and that album sold really well, and that song did really good as well. So how did you feel about that particular time? It seemed like there was really a resurgence in the band.
yeah. I don't know why. I mean, we'd still been doing what we were doing. Um, it's a cool song. I like Who May Do. That turned out to be a great song. Um, yeah, it was a good time. I mean, it was a bit strange too. I mean, I didn't really get that movie, but and a lot of the album is kind of backing music for the movie, and there's even an instrumental on there. Who would have thought? I mean, it was a bit strange. I remember we were in the studio, and I think someone came up with the idea of putting a television, televisions in the studio and play that part of the movie back so I could play to it, and when the trucks are crashing, you're hitting a cymbal and all this kind of silliness. But I don't know. It got done. It turned out to be a pretty good album, and people seem to like it.
Yeah, the ACDC went back to their original producers on the new tracks on that. Harry Vanda and George Young. What was it
Yeah.
like working with Harry and George?
Oh, it's great. Yeah. I mean, much respect already, before I met them. I mean, they did the early stuff, Power Edge and all those albums. They were great to work with. They really kept things moving along. They kept it moving forward, and they really helped the process, and the stories they would tell between them. They had some stories like about Barn, and it was great meeting them both. It really was, and they were really good to work with.
Now, you mentioned Bond. When you guys came up with your set list, did you go out of your way to include like an equal amount of Bond songs, or at that point was it like more Brian songs?
Nah, not really. I think they already had a pretty steady, organized set, and obviously there's some songs that you just have to play. Like For Those About to Rock, Back in Black, Shoot the Thrill. Those songs, You Shook Me All Night Long. So, I don't think they really thought about that too much. That there were, Highway to Hell, Bond songs, I mean, I don't think they really thought about that. There was a time, I think it was on Blow Up Your Video, where we did go into the rehearse like Riff Raff, and I think we even tried Ride On. But we all kind of knew that wouldn't work live. I don't know why. It's just a little bit too mellow, that one. But it was out, and doing them. And all me and Brian were in heaven, playing Riff Raff and those kind of songs. So, but it was never like a half and half thing with the set.
So at this point, AC/DC was really on a roll again. Really, selling out arenas and on all the magazines. And then you released Blow Up the Video on February 1st, 1988. And that record did really well. But the interesting thing with that record is that Malcolm Young didn't tour for that particular one. He was dealing with some alcohol issues, and they brought Stevie Young in, their nephew. How bad was Malcolm during that time?
Yeah, it got to a head with him. His son at home was having some really bad medical issues. And I think he just got on top of him, because he was away and he wanted to be at home with his son. And there was this endless stream of tour dates coming up. And, it was strange to see, because Malcolm is kind of like the guy who holds the whole thing together, holds the fort down, and it got bad, and he eventually told us he just needed to go home. And they brought in Stevie, who was a great replacement for him. Stevie did a fantastic job. We did a couple of rehearsals with him, and he already had it all down. So that was a great relief, especially to Angus, who was very worried about the whole thing, but it worked out.
Yeah. Were there any thoughts of postponing and waiting until Malcolm could come and play it?
No, I don't think so. Like I said, I wasn't privy to that kind of. I didn't deal with any of that kind of the business of it, but the way it turned out, probably not. No. We had to, the dates were booked, probably guarantees were already collected or something. I don't know. The shows were set up. So,
Recently, I read in an interview you did in which you mentioned that you once heard a demo of Bon Scott singing Back in Black. Is that true, or did I misread that?
No, that was, I was over in Holland at Angus's house, and I forget why we were there. We were doing something. Mal came in a couple of days later as well. We're just jamming stuff for the new album. I can't remember what year that was either. But Angus played me a couple of tapes. He said, here, listen to this, And it was Back in Black, but Bon was playing the drums on it. So that's what I heard anyway, So that was that.
Okay, so it was just the music. There were no lyrics. Just Bon Scott was playing drums.
Yeah, and it only lasted like a minute. But he said, "Check this out." Didn't really mean anything. He was just, he had these tapes. I'm going, "What's this?" Being nosy, and yeah.
Did they tell you a lot of stories of Bon Scott while you're with the band? I mean, did they still talk about him a lot?
I must admit, no, they didn't. No, they didn't. It was kind of I don't know. There was such a strong bond with them, and maybe it was because I was, even after 4 or 5 years, I was still the new guy. So, I don't know. It's not that they didn't trust me, but they were always tight-lipped about Bon with a lot of people, not just me. There was sort of like this blood bond between them,
Yeah.
And you got to respect that.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, there's just that, like, there's been controversy since the Back in Black record was released so soon after his death that, a lot of people just want to assume that Bon Scott played more of a role in that record than ACDC is letting on.
There's a lot of assumptions and there's a lot of controversy, and, that's just that's the nature of the animal, right?
Yeah, and it's just because people love the music so much and they love Bon Scott so much, and they just, it becomes a focus of their lives. It's like because they want answers, and if their thoughts don't like correspond to the truth, I mean, they just try to look for things that might necessarily not have anything to do with it.
I don't disagree. Absolutely.
So now the one question that you've been asked a million times before, but I'm going to ask you a million and one time is you left ACDC, and you joined Dio, which is an amazing, great band, and they were very popular at the time too. I guess what led to your decision to leave ACDC at that time, especially since they're like back on track as far as their popularity goes?
Well, I'll answer this for the 1,001st time. Yeah, no, I mean, it just got to a point with me. It was the playing. I wanted to do more with the drumming aspect of things, and you just can't do that with that band because that's not what they were about. They were like a solid unit, But I wanted to expand my drumming a bit more, and I just became more and more complacent with the whole thing. So, luckily enough, I'd heard through the grapevine that Vinny wasn't happy in Ronnie's band and stuff and all, and I just moved on. I managed to secure that gig. Ronnie was a great person, and he would his style of music led to being more creative on the drums, and he was always looking for a different angle on things, and at least in parts. So it was I was just really lucky to move on like that. But I've no regrets. I've no animosity about anything. It was a pretty clean break, so it worked for everybody.
I'm assuming that they were trying to talk you out of it once you told them the decision for the first time.
No, not really. They could see too that I was a bit complacent about everything, and that did not work for them. I felt really bad about things, but I just had to move on, and they saw that, and fine,
Did you still have contact with them afterwards? Did you still have conversations with any of the members after you left?
No. I met them. I went to a show in 2007 with a friend of mine. The lighting guy at the time was a guy called Cosmo Wilson, and he'd done a lot of work with us when I was in Dio. He was a great lighting technician, still is. And he persuaded me to go down to the show in Los Angeles. So I went down and I saw my old drum tech again and met Angus and Mal and Cliff and Brian and everything. And it was all cool. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I mean, they can't really blame you for wanting to expand your music career. You put in like 6 great years and
No,
helped them make some great music.
they'd moved on since then. They, Phil Rudd was back. And after I left it, oh my God, I've gone blank. Chris Slade. Sorry, Chris. Chris did a big part with them, and then Phil came back, and then there was some weird things went on with Phil, but that's the way the world turns. But no, they were nice, and it was a brilliant show, really brilliant show.
This record right here, the Dio record, Lock Up the Wolves, absolutely incredible. Starts off with drums on the very first track, and you're not. There you go. You're not kidding. You killed it on that. I mean, the drums is like one of the best parts of this record.
Thank you. I didn't. I enjoyed myself. I must admit, it was great. It was nice to talk to somebody about drums. It was kind of in charge, and he had a lot of great ideas too. So that was really refreshing. I mean, we worked closely together since on all the albums I did with him. It was great.
How different was it touring with ACDC as opposed to touring with Dio?
Well, things were a little bit scaled down, but they were still really professional. We had a big stage set, this huge bones coming up around the stage, and what was I on, like a 12-foot drum riser next to the keyboard player. It was a different thing. It was a different thing. It was a great thing.
Yeah. Now, Ronnie went back to Black Sabbath shortly after that. Was how disappointing was that for you after you just left ACDC?
It wasn't that disappointing, I must admit, because we'd become such good friends. And he'd gotten that offer to go back with them. And the album is an amazing record, Dehumanizer. That was the album he did, and he toured it. I was just happy for him. I don't know what maybe I should have been pissed off, but for some reason I wasn't, because I just felt it was, a great move for him. I mean, I must admit, towards the end of that Lock Up the Wolves tour, some of the shows were getting smaller, and and I think it was like that for a lot of bands because things were changing. That grunge thing came in, and a lot of the record companies were clearing house of heavy metal bands and stuff. And I think it already started before I joined Dio, but that started to affect things within that band. So I think it was a good thing for him, and I wished him all the best.
Mm-hmm. And then a few years down the road, you ended up with UFO. You played on a Mog Way record first of all, and then a UFO record. What was it like playing in that band?
Oh, it was great. Yeah, great times. Some strange times too. I guess Andy, when I first joined up, I think that was in '95, if I remember right. I can't remember how that came around, but I had a truck. I drove out to Arizona where they were rehearsing, and Andy, the original drummer who was playing with them, didn't want to carry on with the tour. He wanted to be at home and spend more time, I think, with his father in his business. So it was all the original band. It was Michael Schenker, Phil Mogg, Pete Ray, Paul Raymond, and me. So it really worked out. I mean, right from the get-go, we all got along great. Pete, Paul, we became really good friends, and it was a fantastic time.
Yeah, and then unfortunately, Michael Schenker left the band again. Not that long after that, I should say.
No, it wasn't that soon. We did about 3 years. No, 2 years, I think. Mm-hmm. And then how should we put it? A little episode. And I still, to this day, have no idea why. I think he had some... my best guess is that there's a lot of there was some, unfinished conversations with him and Phil, and Pete was always in the middle of it, kind of refereeing the whole thing. God bless him. And I think it just came up again, and it caused a whole big problem.
Yeah. And then after that, you got back with Ronnie and played with Ronnie until the end of his career. And what was it like, playing with Ronnie towards the end? I mean, did you know that he was sick?
Oh, well, he wasn't feeling very well. He'd actually put a hold on the band, and he'd been in again. He got back with Tony and Geezer, and they called the band Heaven and Hell.
Right. Yeah.
I guess they couldn't use the band the name Black Sabbath, because it was owned by the 4 members of Black Sabbath. So they formed Heaven and Hell. So he'd been touring that probably for about a year, maybe I'm wrong. I can't remember exactly. But we did hear when he was on the road with them that towards the end of that, he started having these stomach pains and stuff. But with Ronnie, he just shrugs it off and carries on, and most men do, it'll go away, don't mean anything. But we got together after the Heaven and Hell gigs, the tour, and he wanted to do a Dio tour. So we got to get we was going to start off with a British tour. So we were rehearsing the set, and it was me and Rudy and Doug Aldridge, and we had the rehearsal set up, and we started rehearsing, and it was strange because he wanted to start the set with Catch the Rainbow, and I was kind of like, that's strange, because it's such a slow, mellow song. Usually Dio sets come in with a bang,
Yeah.
And I thought that was weird, and he wasn't really, quite all there. He seemed to have something else on his mind, which was unusual, because he's usually right on the ball, And then we rehearsed for a couple of days, and then I was staying at Ronnie's house. I'd been staying there. I looked after the house when he was doing Heaven and Hell. So anyway, Wendy told me that she's going to take him to the doctors, and we should still go down and rehearse and just rehearse the parts and stuff and everything. So we did that, and then Wendy arrived at rehearsal and said that, told us the news. And then, he got lots of care. He used to go to Texas to a chemo place. So, everything that could be done was being done to help him. But we had to cancel the UK tour. So that's how it kind of was at the end of that. And I helped him at home when he would get home, because he'd been a really good friend. And I thought, well, he'd probably do the same for me. So I used to mix up all these concoctions of, strawberries and cauliflower and everything that was good, and put them in a blender. And then I'd say, hey, Ronnie, you got to drink this. And he'd say, fuck off, I'm not drinking that, because he hated vegetables. So anyway, that was that.
Yeah, I remember at the time reading that you and him went to the movies a couple times, and that you were like as somebody that was with him, like at the end like that. And
yeah, it wasn't just me. I mean, Wendy's Wendy was right by his side too. He had a doctor that would come around the house. There was a nurse that would be there every day at 7 a.m. So I'd let her in, and everybody who knew him, and he had a lot of friends, so they all wanted to help, and it was it was difficult because he's a very hard-headed man. He's very he knows exactly what the hell's going on, and he couldn't make a move with this horrible thing going on with him. It kept interrupting what he was trying to do, And yeah, But he battled through it, that's for sure. I tried to help him, but there you go.
Yeah, I remember at the time it seemed like he was on the upswing, and all the news that we were getting, through the press was that he was going to be all right, or was going to come out of it. So
Yeah.
it was really shocking, hearing the news that he passed away. I mean, I don't think
Well,
anyone expected that. At least nobody. I mean, from my end, just hearing the press reports and that. Yeah.
yeah, I think they were just trying to put a brave face on things, really. But, and we were all hoping and praying that he'd be all right. But, yeah,
Yeah,
that cancer's a bastard.
yeah, absolutely. Well, I appreciate you sharing those stories. Simon, one of the last questions I want to ask you today is that you have such great, experiences in rock and roll. Have you ever thought about putting them, some of these stories together in a book?
Yeah, I'm trying to do it at the moment.
Oh, are you? Oh,
It's,
awesome. Great.
he's, I've got a good friend of mine helping me. He's in New York, and yeah, a guy called Jeff Pizzuti. So yeah, it's slow going, but we're kind of getting there. We'll see. And yeah, I mean, there has been interesting things happen to me. So I think a lot of people might find it either amusing or interesting. So why not? We'll see what happens.
Yeah, it seems like so many of these rock autobiographies just focus in on like drugs and sex and but I wouldn't. I mean, are we going to see that in your book too, or is it going to be? Would it be just basically the rock and roll side of it?
Just the sex bit. Lots of
All right, great.
her name was Dolores. No, it'll be about all sorts, but it'll be about things that are positive and not negative. I think that's the way I want to try and do it. So we'll see. It's one day at a time, really, or 1 week at a time.
Yeah. Do you have any other recording projects planned for the future?
Yeah, there is something coming up. It's by it's a smallish record label, and they want me to do an album um with Joe Redder, who was a singer in a band I was in for a bit there called Heaven and Earth, and George Lynch and Bjorn England. So we'll see if that comes to fruition. I don't know if it will or not, but that could be quite cool. It's all a matter of timing, apparently. So we'll wait and see. And I started doing teaching people, doing drum lessons, which has been thoroughly enjoyable. So I'm going to keep doing that. I have 4 or 5 students, which is fine at the moment because that's enough for now. Which is great. Enjoying home doing that. Did a couple of Comic Cons in Canada. That was fun.
Wow.
Yeah, met the Incredible Hulk. I didn't piss him off. He's okay. Just don't piss him off.
So out of all these great records that you played on, what one is the most favorite one that you played on?
There's not one, I don't think. I mean, they were all pretty enjoyable. I did enjoy doing Magica with Ronnie, the Dio album Magica. That was really we all have a lot of input. We especially had a lot of input on that record during the writing of it and stuff, and it was really enjoyable from all aspects of it, And there was others too, It's been having done so many of these albums. There's always some good points on there.
Yeah, yeah. It's a very impressive catalog or discography of records that you put out over the years, and
I've been very lucky.
yeah, definitely. All right, Simon. Well, I want to thank you again for your time. It was great talking to you finally after all these years, and I can't wait for this book to come out. I'm so glad you said you were writing one.
Don't tell anybody; it's not out yet. I'm still writing it. So.
All right. Well, we'll get back together when the book comes out. We can talk all about the book. How's that sound?
Sounds good, Thomas. Nice talking with you. All the best, mate.
All right. Thank you, Simon. You take it easy and have a great day. Okay.